The diner was almost empty when it happened. The rain outside had been falling for hours, turning the small roadside town in Ontario into a quiet, gray blur. Inside the diner, the smell of coffee and fries filled the warm air. Emily Carter sat alone in a booth near the window, nervously twisting the sleeve of her sweater while waiting for the waitress to bring her food. She looked small and quiet, the kind of girl most people wouldn't notice. Her brown hair was tied loosely behind her head, and her eyes stayed fixed on the table as if she hoped the world would simply ignore her. But the world doesn't always leave quiet people alone. 3 loud men pushed through the diner door, their boots thudding against the floor. They were laughing, already half drunk, their voices echoing across the room. The waitress glanced at them nervously but said nothing. Everyone in town knew these guys. They were trouble. Emily tried not to look at them. Unfortunately, they noticed her. One of them, a tall man with greasy hair and a cruel smile, nudged his friend and pointed toward Emily's booth. "Well, look at that," he said loudly. "What's a little mouse doing here all alone?" Emily's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. She kept her eyes down. The men walked over. "Hey sweetheart," the tall one said, sliding into the booth across from her without asking. The other 2 stood nearby, blocking the aisle. "You waiting for someone?" Emily shook her head slightly. "Please, I just want to eat." Her quiet voice only made them laugh harder. "Oh come on," another man said. "Don't be shy, we're just being friendly." Emily tried to stand up, hoping to leave, but the tall man grabbed the sleeve of her shirt. "Sit down." The diner went silent. A few customers looked over but quickly returned to their meals. No one wanted trouble. Emily's voice trembled. "Let go of me." Instead, the man pulled harder. The fabric of her shirt ripped with a sharp tearing sound. Emily gasped and quickly covered herself, humiliation burning across her face as laughter erupted from the men. One of them pulled out his phone like it was all some kind of joke. Tears filled her eyes. "Please stop," she whispered. But they only laughed louder. Then the diner door opened again. At first, no one paid attention. Just another customer walking in from the rain. Heavy boots stepped across the floor. The laughter slowly faded as people began to notice the man standing near the entrance. He was tall, broad shoulders, long dark beard, leather vest soaked with rain. And on the back of that vest was a large patch every biker in Canada recognized instantly. Hell's Angels. The room went dead quiet. The biker slowly removed his gloves, his eyes scanning the diner. At first he looked calm, until he saw Emily standing there, holding her torn shirt together, tears running down her face. Everything about him changed. His face hardened, his jaw clenched, and then he spoke one quiet word. "Emily." She looked up, her eyes widened. "Daniel." The 3 men in the booth froze as the biker walked closer, each step heavy and deliberate. Suddenly the joke didn't feel funny anymore. Daniel Carter stopped beside the table and looked at his little sister. His voice was soft, but it carried something terrifying beneath it. "What happened?" Emily tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Her lip trembled as she glanced toward the men. That was enough. Daniel slowly turned his head toward them. The tall man forced an awkward laugh. "Hey buddy, it's not what it looks like." Before he could finish, Daniel grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the booth so hard the dishes rattled. The entire diner jumped. "You touched her?" Daniel asked quietly. The man's face turned pale. I didn't know she was." Daniel's grip tightened. "My sister." The other 2 men backed away immediately, their confidence completely gone now. Daniel wasn't yelling. He wasn't threatening. That made it worse, because everyone in the room could feel the storm behind his calm. "You think ripping a girl's shirt is funny?" Daniel said. The man shook his head desperately. "Look man, we were just messing around." Daniel released him suddenly, letting him collapse back into the booth. For a moment it seemed like it was over. But then Daniel leaned down close enough for the 3 men to hear him clearly. "If you ever come near her again, you won't have hands left to touch anyone." No shouting, no dramatic threats, just cold certainty. The men nodded quickly, fear written all over their faces. "Leave," Daniel said. They didn't argue. Within seconds they rushed out of the diner, nearly slipping on the wet pavement as they ran to their truck and disappeared into the rainy night. The silence inside the diner lingered. Daniel turned back to Emily. The anger in his face faded, replaced by the same protective warmth he had carried since they were kids growing up in a small Canadian town. He gently removed his leather jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "It's okay," he said softly. Emily finally broke down crying, hugging him tightly. "I didn't know who else to call," she whispered. Daniel held her carefully. "You never have to face things alone," he said. Around them, the diner slowly returned to life. The waitress brought Emily a warm cup of tea, her hands still shaking. For the first time since the nightmare started, Emily felt safe. And as Daniel sat beside his sister, one quiet truth filled the room. Sometimes the strongest people in the world aren't the ones looking for trouble. They're the ones who show up when someone they love needs them most.